The instant I opened my eyes, a blue and white porcelain bowl came whistling straight at my forehead. The good news was that it missed. The bad news was that I instinctively grabbed the copper basin beside me and raised it as a shield. The bowl bounced off the basin, flew backward, and landed perfectly over the head of a plump old nursemaid. Rice porridge streamed down her face. With her head covered in white grains, she looked like a benevolent deity that had somehow attained enlightenment inside a rice jar. The room fell silent. A little dumpling of a boy, perhaps 4 years old and dressed in an expensive brocade robe, stood beside the table glaring at me. "Bad woman," he shouted in a childish voice, "I will not eat, and you are not allowed to be my mother consort." I looked down at the bright red wedding gown on my body. Then I looked at the red silk decorations hanging crookedly around the room. A mass of memories flooded into my mind. My name was Sue Fanfan. I had been a food blogger and the owner of a private dining restaurant. The night before, I had been reading a novel about a vicious stepmother. The heroine had been so unbearably foolish that I had posted 3 consecutive pages of furious criticism. Then I had choked on water and passed out. When I opened my eyes again, I had become the cannon fodder's second wife in that very novel. Shen Wanjin. The original Shen Wanjin had been forced by her stepmother to marry into the Prince Regent's residence in another woman's place. On the first day, the young heir had injured her by throwing a bowl at her. Then the servants had joined together to accuse her of abusing the child. She had been driven out of the residence and had eventually died of illness on the street. Wonderful. Within the first moment of entering the novel, I had already managed to plant both feet on top of my own grave. The plump nursemaid wiped porridge from her face and shrieked, "Your Highness, the young heir is only a child. How could you strike him with a copper basin?" I looked at her. Which of your eyes saw me hit him? That bowl was clearly. I raised my hand and pointed at her head. The bowl is on your head. The porridge is on your face. Clearly, you are the culprit. I tilted my head. What is this? Do you normally enjoy smashing bowls with your skull? The nursemaid's lips trembled. The little boy froze. Apparently, this was the first time he had seen anyone argue such ridiculous logic with such absolute confidence. I walked to the table and examined the meal he had just knocked over. The porridge was so thin that a person could probably see their ancestors reflected in it. The greens were yellow enough to look as though they had survived 3 generations of mother-in-law feuds. Beside them sat half a steamed bun, hard enough to repair a city wall. I touched it. Several lines of text appeared before my eyes. Stored for 5 days. Mixed with old rice husk powder. Unfit for consumption. Best use, throwing at dogs. My eyebrow twitched. Was the Prince Regent's residence so poor that it could not even afford to feed a child? Impossible. Prince Regent Zhao Jinhen controlled the imperial court. According to rumor, his residence had floors paved with gold bricks and banknotes gathering dust in storage. Had he spent all his money varnishing that cold face of his? I turned to the nursemaid. This is what the kitchen sent today. Her eyes flickered. The young heir has a weak stomach. He may only eat bland food. These meals were specially ordered by Miss Liu. Miss Liu. Liu Ruyan. The woman who lived in the Prince Regent's residence under his family's protection. On the surface, she was gentle, virtuous, and considerate. In secret, she was so vicious that she even stole food from a child. I nodded. Fine. I had barely arrived, and I was already surrounded by people who stole meals from a 4-year-old. The King of Hell had assigned me work perfectly suited to my profession. Where is the kitchen? The nursemaid sneered. Does your Highness intend to cook personally? Forgive this servant for speaking plainly, but you were raised in a marquis estate. I doubt you have ever even seen a cooking fire. I smiled as well. You are right, I rarely see cooking fires. I usually only watch other people being roasted over them. Half an incense stick later, I entered the residence kitchen. Several cooks stood with folded arms, waiting to enjoy the spectacle. They left me one bowl of cold rice, 2 eggs, and half a wilted scallion. Someone snickered under her breath. Even the cleverest cook cannot make a meal without ingredients. Let us see what she can possibly do. I touched the rice. Cooked japonica rice from the previous night. Dry and loose. Perfect for egg-fried rice. I immediately rolled up my sleeves. What a joke. Give me one bowl of leftover rice, and I could return an entire peak life experience. The wok heated. Pork fat melted across the iron surface. The instant the beaten eggs hit the pan, they hissed sharply, and the fragrance burst through the kitchen. I poured in the rice. With a turn of my wrist, each grain rose from the wok like a golden wave. At the end, I scattered chopped scallions and fine salt over the top. In less than a quarter of an hour, I placed a bowl of glossy golden fried rice before Xiao Yan. Every grain was separate. Every grain shone. His eyes were fixed on it, but his mouth remained stubborn. I will not eat. I picked up the bowl and turned away. Good, I will eat it myself. I had taken only one step when a small hand grabbed the hem of my skirt. Xiao Yan looked up at me, cheeks puffed out. You made it for me. You are not allowed to take it back. I raised an eyebrow. Were you not determined to die rather than eat it? His small face became solemn. I can eat first, then die. I nearly applauded him on the spot. He was young, but his logic had already formed its own independent school of thought. I put the bowl back on the table. The little dumpling took his first bite with exaggerated restraint. Then came the second. Then the third. Before half a cup of tea had passed, the bottom of the bowl was clean enough to use as a mirror. He secretly glanced at me. Then he stuck out his tongue and carefully licked the rim. At that moment, a childish voice suddenly entered my ears. Yet his lips had not moved. It is so delicious. If I call her mother consort, will she make food for me every day? My hand stopped. The second ability of my 100 flavors divine stove had followed me into this world as well. Whenever someone ate food I had personally cooked, I could randomly hear one of their strongest thoughts. I lowered my gaze to Xiao Yan. On the outside, he looked like a small wolf cub. Inside, he was already considering trading the title of mother consort for a daily supply of fried rice. Promising child. Orderly footsteps sounded outside. The hem of a dark robe swept across the threshold. A tall man entered. His features were severe. His presence filled the room. The sword at his waist still carried the chill of the outdoors. There was no need to guess. A man with a face that looked as though the entire world owed him money could only be Prince Regent Xiao Jinhen. The moment Xiao Yan saw him, he wrapped both arms around my leg. Father, her food is delicious. I want her. Xiao Jinhen's gaze settled on me. His face visibly darkened. Shen Wanjin, you have been in this residence for less than half a day, and you already dare seduce my son. I looked down at the 4-year-old, clinging to my leg, with fried rice around his mouth. Then I looked at Xiao Jinhen. Your Highness may rest assured. I harbor no improper intentions toward 4-year-old children. Xiao Jinhen said nothing. I added, as for your Highness at present, I would say you are worth no more than half a wok of rice. Every servant in the room lowered their head at once. Their shoulders shook violently. Moju bit down on his sleeve to keep himself from laughing aloud. Xiao Jinhen stared at me for a long time. I calmly met his eyes. What was there to fear? At worst, we could divorce. I had hands, feet, and skills. I would not starve. Just then, Xiao Yan swallowed the final grain of rice. His thoughts sounded in my ears again. I cannot let her leave. Aunt Liu said that if I keep eating terrible food, Father will think I am too difficult to raise and eventually abandon me. The smile slowly vanished from my face. Someone had been deliberately starving this child. And that person lived inside the Prince Regent's residence. I looked up at Xiao Jinhen. Your Highness, let us postpone our earlier discussion. Right now, we should discuss who has been seasoning your son's porridge with an attempt on his life. After hearing what I said, the temperature in the room seemed to fall several degrees. Xiao Jinhen looked at the steamed bun mixed with husk powder. Moju, investigate. Moju immediately bowed. Yes, Your Highness. The plump nursemaid turned deathly pale and dropped to her knees. Your Highness, please judge fairly. The young heir has always been weak. These meals were prescribed by the imperial physician at Miss Liu's request. This servant merely followed orders. I rubbed my chin. You mean to say the imperial physician ordered you to strengthen the young heir's health with a steamed bun that had been sitting for 5 days? The nursemaid choked. That. Or did the physician say that because his stomach is weak, he should eat husks and prepare himself early for life as an army horse? Xiao Yan stood beside me and nodded seriously. Horses eat better than I do. With a single sentence, he struck the final nail into the nursemaid's coffin. Xiao Jinhen's expression grew even colder. Within an hour, the residence ledgers, kitchen inventory records, and purchase lists had all been carried into the main hall. I flipped through several pages and nearly laughed. According to the accounts, the young heir consumed 20 caddies of bird's nest, 40 old hens, and 8 cured hams every month. In reality, he was as thin as a freshly sprouted bean stalk. I looked at Xiao Yan. You eat 40 chickens a month. His eyes widened in shock. I have never even seen a chicken feather. I nodded. Excellent. Then the chickens must have grown legs overnight and run directly into someone else's stomach. Dio Chenkai knelt in the hall, sweat pouring down his face. Your Highness, perhaps the ledger was simply recorded incorrectly. I smiled gently. Oh, is that so? I do not believe you. Since it was merely written incorrectly, why do we not search your residence? If we find nothing, I will personally apologize. A flash of smugness passed through Dio Chenkai's eyes. Clearly, he believed the stolen goods were perfectly hidden. Unfortunately for him, when I touched the grease stain on the ledger, several lines had already appeared. Jinhua cured ham. Previously stored in the western cellar of the Prince Regent's residence. Currently hidden in a secret chamber beneath Dio Chenkai's bed. I turned directly to Moju. Lift his bed. Dio Chenkai jerked his head up. You cannot. The instant the words left his mouth, he froze. I looked at him approvingly. With such enthusiastic dedication to confessing against yourself, you would have won an annual cooperation award in my old world. Moju soon returned with 12 cured hams, 6 crates of bird's nest, 8 sacks of fine rice, and 1 chest of silver ingots. Xiao Yan walked in a circle around the hams and looked up at me. Food mother, are all of these mine? My eyelid twitched. Wait, what did you call me? Food mother. He sounded completely reasonable. You know how to cook, and father married you to be my mother. Therefore, you are food mother. I took a deep breath. Fine. It sounded better than stepmother. Xiao Jinhen, however, appeared deeply dissatisfied with the title. She is the princess consort. Xiao Yan wrapped himself around my arm. She is my food mother. Xiao Jinhen was silent for a moment. Then he looked at me. His gaze clearly said, see, you truly are seducing my son. I returned a look of my own. If you cannot afford to raise a child, do not have one. You had him, yet I am the one feeding him. Dio Chenkai was still defending himself from the floor. Your Highness, this servant was merely confused for a moment. These items had not yet been returned to storage. I walked to stand before him. You were confused for 3 years. If your mind truly works so poorly, you should remove it and donate it to a lantern. At least a lantern can hold a candle inside. The guards surrounding us began coughing in unison. Xiao Jinhan spoke calmly. Take him away. Flog him, then send him to the northern garrison to raise pigs. Confiscate all his property. Dio Chenkai was dragged away, weeping. I immediately reminded the guards. Do not forget to repay the chicken legs he owes the young heir. Xiao Jinhan looked at me. How do you wish to deal with the others in the kitchen? I opened the ledger. Anyone who confesses voluntarily and returns the stolen money may remain with a demotion. Anyone who refuses to admit guilt will be sent to raise pigs with Dio Chenkai. Everyone in the kitchen immediately dropped to their knees. This servant is willing to confess. This lowly one will confess too. Your Highness, Steward Dio also stole 2 jars of imperial wine last year. Moju looked horrified. So I was not the one who drank those 2 jars. Xiao Jinhan slowly turned his head. Moju dropped to his knees with a smack. What this subordinate means is that, fortunately, this subordinate was not the one who drank them. I clapped my hands. Your Highness, your residence is wonderfully lively. We investigated a kitchen and received a self-surrendering guard as a complimentary gift. Tears appeared in Moju's eyes. That evening, I used the recovered chicken legs to make honey-glazed teriyaki chicken for Xiao Yan. He ate until his mouth gleamed with oil. Yet he deliberately left the largest chicken leg for me. I was surprised. Why are you not eating it? He whispered. Whenever there was something good before, Aunt Liu always said children did not deserve to eat first. You found these for me today. I will give you half. I stroked his head. Remember this from now on. What belongs to you is yours. If you choose to share, that means you are kind. If you do not wish to share, no one has the right to scold you. He blinked. Then he slowly leaned against my arm. His thoughts sounded in my ears. Food Mother will not abandon me. Something inside me suddenly softened. It was dangerous. It felt like someone had secretly added a spoonful of sugar to a dish I had intended to stir-fry over high heat. Footsteps sounded outside. Xiao Jinhan entered. When he saw Xiao Yan leaning against me, a faint crease appeared between his brows. 1 chicken leg remained on the table. He sat down without speaking and pushed his empty bowl toward me. I did not understand. Is there something in your bowl, Your Highness? No. Then why are you pushing it toward me? His expression remained blank. I have not eaten. Understanding dawned. The mighty Prince Regent wanted a chicken leg, but was too proud to ask. His stubbornness was clearly inherited by his son. I placed the last chicken leg in his bowl. He took 1 bite. A deep voice immediately sounded inside my mind. She gave Yanner food 3 times before she gave any to me. My chopsticks trembled. Incredible. I had thought he was investigating the kitchen. In reality, he had been auditing the distribution ratio of chicken legs. At that moment, a maid from Liu Ruyan's courtyard delivered an invitation. 3 days later would be the Dowager Consort's birthday banquet. Miss Liu said that since the princess consort is so skilled in cooking, she should personally prepare the feast and allow all the imperial relatives in the capital to witness her abilities. I unfolded the invitation. The ink was barely dry. The provocation, however, had been marinating for quite some time. I smiled. Return and tell Miss Liu that I will certainly attend. Ask her to wash her face in advance. It will be easier for me to strike both sides evenly. On the day of the Dowager Consort's birthday banquet, half the imperial nobility of the capital attended. The moment I entered the rear kitchen, Liu Ruyan came to greet me. She smiled like a bowl of sweet soup, left sitting for too long. Gentle on the surface, sour underneath. Elder sister has only just taken charge of the residence, Yet you are already willing to cook personally for Aunt's birthday. I truly admire you. I smiled back. Miss Liu is too polite. I have few virtues, but kindness is certainly one of them. I especially enjoy preparing people's final meals. Her smile stiffened by half an inch. A scoffing laugh sounded nearby. I turned and found myself facing Shen Mingzhu. She was dressed in so much gold and jewelry that more than a dozen hairpins glittered on her head. From a distance, she resembled a peacock that had just robbed a jewelry shop. Elder sister, I heard you now rely on cooking to please the Prince Regent and the young heir. She covered her mouth and laughed. You never entered a kitchen when you lived in the Marquis estate. Could it be that you stole all those recipes from our family? Liu Ruyan immediately pretended to be astonished. So elder sister's cooking skills were taught by the Shen household. I understood at once. These two planned to switch the seasonings and make me humiliate myself. Afterward, Shen Mingzhu would claim ownership of my recipes. Not a terrible plan. Unfortunately, the participants lacked the necessary brains. I touched the sugar jar on the counter. Fine salt, covered with a thin surface layer of white sugar. Then I touched the other jar. White sugar, covered with a thin surface layer of fine salt. The switch had been carefully done. Anyone, judging only by the surface, would make a mistake. I said nothing. Instead, I looked at Shen Mingzhu. Since younger sister claims the recipes came from the Marquis estate, why do you not demonstrate your own skill today? Her eyes lit up. Naturally. Then make your finest sweet and sour fish. She had never cooked in her life. However, Liu Ruyan had already bribed the kitchen staff. As long as Shen Mingzhu stood nearby and pretended to give instructions, someone else would prepare the dish. Unfortunately for her, I was in the mood to see her perform personally. I instructed Mo Jiu to remove every cook from the kitchen and asked one of the dowager consort's senior attendants to supervise. Since this is younger sister's secret family recipe, allowing others to interfere would insult your ability. Shen Mingzhu's face turned pale. I patted her shoulder. Do not be nervous. It is only one fish. It cannot die twice. Then I returned to my own stove. 5 blessings braised rice. Squirrel-shaped mandarin fish. Silken chicken slices. Emerald shrimp. One dish after another came alive beneath my hands. When Liu Ruyan saw that I had not used the wrong seasonings, her expression worsened by the moment. I deliberately asked, Miss Liu, why do you keep staring at the sugar jar? Did you hide your dowry inside? She hurriedly looked away. On the other side of the kitchen, Shen Mingzhu was sweating profusely. She could not distinguish salt from sugar. Yet she did not dare admit it before everyone. So she poured half of each jar into the wok. When the fish emerged, it carried a strangely sweet fragrance. I took one bite. In that instant, I could almost see the river of forgetfulness waving to me. Sweet. Far too sweet. So sweet that my tongue wanted to leave home and begin a new life elsewhere. The banquet officially began. The dowager consort first tasted my 5 blessings braised rice. The grains had absorbed rich chicken broth and the fragrance of mushrooms. Cured ham, chestnuts, lotus seeds, shrimp, and green peas blended together in perfect balance. Her usually stern expression quickly softened. Delicious. Xiao Yan immediately lifted his chest with pride. My food mother made this. Everyone at the table looked at me. Xiao Jinhan sat beside me and added calmly, She is the princess consort. Xiao Yan looked up at him. She is also my food mother. Father and son stared at each other. Invisible swords seemed to clash in the air. I lowered my head and continued eating. Childish. One was 28. The other was 4. Together, they were 32. Their average mental age was 6. Soon, Shen Mingzhu's sweet and sour fish was served. She rushed to speak first. Dowager consort, This is the true secret recipe of the Shen family. Elder sister's skills were all learned from me. The dowager consort took a bite. After the fish entered her mouth, the elderly woman suddenly stopped moving. Her expression gradually became peaceful, as though she had released all attachment to the mortal world and was preparing to achieve enlightenment on the spot. I asked with concern, "Dowager consort, how does it taste?" She was silent for a moment. I suddenly understand why some fish would rather be caught. Shen Mingzhu's face turned crimson. Liu Ruyan hurriedly intervened. Perhaps she simply made a mistake today. I smiled. How could that be? Younger sister said this was her family's secret recipe. Younger sister, quickly tell everyone the name of this dish. Shen Mingzhu bit her lip. I answered for her. I believe it should be called sweet fish of the underworld. One bite, and your ancestors begin celebrating the new year early. The entire hall erupted in laughter. Shen Mingzhu's eyes reddened with rage. Someone must have switched my seasonings. I nodded. That is reasonable. Bring the 2 jars here. Let us examine whose fingerprints are on them. The teacup in Liu Ruyan's hand fell to the table with a crack. Clearly, she had not expected me to suggest examining fingerprints. Great Sheng had no modern fingerprint identification. I had merely said it to frighten her. Unexpectedly, she panicked before anyone else. There is no need to investigate. The entire room went quiet. I slowly looked at her. Liu Ruyan's face turned pale. She forced out a smile. What I mean is, today is Aunt's birthday. It would be improper to create a disturbance over such a minor matter. I nodded thoughtfully. So Miss Liu already knew the seasonings had been switched. Anyone unaware of the situation might think you had switched them yourself. She could no longer speak. The dowager consort studied her for a long time. Her expression darkened. Ruyan, from today onward, you will no longer interfere in the internal affairs of the Prince Regent's residence. Liu Ruyan swayed. Satisfaction rose inside me. She had intended to use the banquet to place me over a fire. Instead, she carried the wood, lit the flames, and sat down on top of them herself. Halfway through the banquet, Xiao Jinhen suddenly picked up a shrimp. With measured movements, he removed the shell and placed the meat in my bowl. I looked at it in surprise. Why is your highness so considerate today? You have been busy all day. His tone remained calm. Eat more. I ate the shrimp. Just as I began to feel moved, Xiao Yan held out his bowl. Father, I want one too. Xiao Jinhen glanced at him. Peel it yourself. Xiao Yan was horrified. I am a child. You are 4, you are not that young. I nearly laughed aloud. When this man became jealous of his own son, even basic parental conscience could temporarily disappear. Near the end of the banquet, Lady Qin suddenly approached the main table with 2 stewards. She produced a promissory note and sighed before everyone. Wanjin, mother did not wish to mention family matters today. However, your birth mother owed the Marquis estate 100,000 taels of silver. Now that you have married into the Prince Regent's residence, you should return the restaurants and farmland she left behind to the Marquis household. I took the note and examined it. The handwriting was crude. The seal was fresh. The ink was practically shouting that the document was forged. Lady Qin wore an expression of maternal concern. You have always been sensible. You would not wish His Highness to believe you are unfilial. I looked up. Mother is right. Lady Qin's eyes lit up. I beckoned to Mojiu. Invite the capital magistrate. Bring additional sealing strips. Lady Qin's smile froze. I slapped the forged note onto the table. Since we are settling accounts, let us settle everything. For every time she cries today, seal 1 storeroom in the Marquis estate. The capital magistrate arrived quickly. So quickly that I suspected he had been crouching outside the walls of the Prince Regent's residence, waiting for the spectacle to begin. It proved one thing. Officials in the capital might appear dignified on the surface, but in their hearts, each possessed an energetic passion for gossip. I ordered the servants to bring out the dowry register, copies of the property deeds, and account books left by the original Shen Wanjin's mother. The moment Lady Qin saw those ledgers, her expression changed. "How did those fall into your hands?" I blinked. "What a strange question, Mother. If you had done nothing wrong, why would their location concern you?" She immediately turned to Zhao Jinhen. "Your Highness, Wanjin has always been extreme in temperament. She is only treating her maternal family this way because she has listened to the slander of petty people." Zhao Jinhen set down his teacup. "She is right." Lady Qin froze. "Your Highness has not yet examined the evidence." I believe her. 5 simple words blocked the long speech Lady Qin had prepared inside her throat. I could not resist looking sideways at him. The man seemed to have suddenly achieved enlightenment. Not only could he peel shrimp, but he had also learned to choose a side. If he continued improving at this rate, his value might rise from half a wok of rice to an entire wok. The capital magistrate quickly verified the accounts. The late Madame Shen brought 3 restaurants, 2 farming estates, 4 silk shops, and 80,000 taels in liquid silver into the Marquis household as her dowry. The profits from these properties over the past 10 years were all transferred into the names of Lady Qin and second Miss Shen. Lady Qin cried out. She voluntarily entrusted those properties to the Marquis estate. I asked, "Where is the document granting that authority?" She could not answer. I pointed at the promissory note. "This says my mother borrowed 100,000 taels in the 15th year of Chengping. Yet by that year, she had already been dead for 2 years. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Sweat appeared on Lady Qin's forehead. Perhaps the year was written incorrectly. I nodded. "Very well. Then please explain why the seal on the note is the new seal the Marquis estate only began using last year." Her lips trembled. "This." I smiled. "Do not worry. I have not even begun behaving wickedly." Mo Jiu handed another ledger to the capital magistrate. It listed every transfer Lady Qin had made to her own relatives after seizing my mother's properties. With every transaction the magistrate read aloud, Lady Qin's face grew paler. Under the law, forging legal documents and seizing the dowry of a deceased woman requires the full return of all assets, along with a fine equal to twice the amount taken. Lady Qin swayed and began to cry. "Wanjin, I raised you for more than 10 years. How can you force your mother into such a position?" I turned to the officers. "Seal 1 storeroom." An officer immediately took out a sealing strip. Lady Qin's sobbing stopped. I reminded her, "You may continue. The Marquis estate has many storerooms, and I have plenty of time today." She forced her tears back. Shen Mingzhu, however, could not restrain herself. "Elder sister, how can you be so unfilial? Mother raised you. Naturally, I deserve a share of those properties." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because I am the legitimate daughter of the Marquis estate." "Oh." I nodded. "Then ask the Marquis for your share." "My mother did not give birth to you." Shen Mingzhu was furious. "But you are already a princess consort. You do not need the money." I laughed. "Whether I need it is my concern. Whether you are attempting to steal it is the government's concern. A mountain may have countless stones, but that does not mean you can carry 2 home and claim it is not theft." The capital magistrate lowered his head. His shoulders trembled slightly. I strongly suspected he was laughing. When Lady Qin realized gentle persuasion would not work, she began to threaten me. "If you treat your maternal family this way, who will support you if you lose His Highness's favor one day?" Zhao Jinhen suddenly stood. He walked to my side and placed a dark iron token in my hand. The command, token of the Prince Regent's residence. To see this token is to see me. Seal as many storerooms as you wish. I will support you. I looked down at the token in my palm. It was cold, heavy, like a man who did not know how to say comforting words, yet had placed certainty and power directly into my hand. Someone added another spoonful of honey to the syrup inside my heart. Annoying. It was becoming far too sweet. In the end, 6 storerooms and the Marquis estate were sealed. Every stolen property was returned to my name. Lady Qin was taken away by the capital magistrate for questioning. Shen Mingzhu followed behind her, crying the entire way. Elder sister, you will regret this. I stood at the entrance of the Prince Regent's residence and waved. Do not worry. My greatest virtue is that I never regret making other people regret their choices. The next day, I went to inspect the 3 recovered restaurants. 2 had already been managed, nearly to death. The remaining one stood in an excellent location, but hardly any customers entered. The manager asked whether I intended to sell it. I looked up at the signboard and made my decision immediately. No. We reopen. And we rename it Wanjin Dining House. Xiaoyan immediately asked, may I go? Yes. May I collect the money? Yes. He jumped excitedly. Xiao Jinhan stood beside us and spoke in a calm voice. A 4-year-old should not handle accounts. Xiaoyan hugged me. Father does not want me to go because he is jealous that I can stay with food mother. Xiao Jinhan's brows lowered. I am merely concerned that you will cause trouble. I rubbed my chin. Your Highness may come as well when you have time. His expression remained indifferent. I am occupied with official matters. I may not have time. That afternoon, before Wanjin Dining House had even opened, he sent over new tables and chairs, a signboard with golden lettering, and 12 guards. Mo Ju quietly told me, His Highness said he happened to pass the Ministry of Works and ordered these for you along the way. I stared at the solid gold signboard, which was nearly twice the height of a man. That had been an impressively long detour. 3 days before the restaurant's opening, a challenge letter arrived. Jin Beisheng, the manager of First House of the capital, invited me to compete in cooking on opening day. He also claimed my ingredients came from suspicious sources and that I was unworthy of operating a restaurant in the capital. After reading it, I folded the letter into a square and placed it beneath the leg of a wobbling table. Xiaoyan asked, Food mother, are you not angry? I smiled. Why should I be angry? When someone voluntarily brings their face to my door, I only need to decide which side to strike first. On the day Wanjin Dining House opened, the street outside was packed. Half the crowd had come to eat. The other half had come to watch First House of the capital smash my signboard. Jin Beisheng blocked the entrance with more than a dozen cooks. In his hand, he carried a blackened piece of pork. Princess Consort Shen, common people found diseased pork in the alley behind your restaurant. You are a princess consort, yet you deceive the public with such filthy meat. Your behavior is shameless. Whispers rose around us. I looked at the pork. Died of swine plague. Source, Western breeding farm belonging to First House of the capital. Transported by Sun Liu, employee of First House. I nearly laughed aloud. Before framing someone, one should at least remember to cut off one's own identifying mark. The pigskin still carried the character Jin, branded by the breeding farm belonging to First House. Jin Beisheng had not come to destroy my restaurant. He had come to demonstrate how to slap his own face with the sole of his shoe. I did not expose him immediately. Instead, I invited him inside. Since manager Jin claims there is a problem with my ingredients, let us inspect them publicly. I ordered the kitchen doors opened. All meats and vegetables were stored separately. The floors were clean. The date, source, and weight of every delivery had been written on wooden labels. The watching citizens repeatedly expressed surprise. Jin Beisheng remained stubborn. "Who knows whether you prepared all this temporarily?" I nodded. "That is a reasonable concern. Then let us also examine the diseased pork you brought." I picked up a knife and lightly scraped the edge of the pigskin. The branded Jin character appeared immediately. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then someone shouted, "Is that not the mark of First House's breeding farm?" Jin Beisheng's face changed. "You forged it." I clapped my hands. Two guards brought Sun Liu forward. He fell to his knees and cried so hard that tears and mucus ran together. The manager ordered me to do it. He promised me 10 taels of silver if I threw the diseased meat into the alley behind Wanjin dining house. Jin Beisheng roared, "Nonsense." I gently reminded him, "Do not become agitated. You probably have not had time to hide the dozen vats of reused cooking oil in your rear courtyard." His entire body stiffened. I had already asked Mo Jiu to report the matter. When officers entered the rear yard of First House, they carried out more than a dozen vats of oil so black that a person could see their previous life reflected in it. They also discovered large quantities of livestock that had died of disease. The watching citizens were furious. Someone smashed the signboard of First House on the spot. Jin Beisheng attempted to flee. Xiao Yan stuck out one foot and sent him sprawling face first onto the ground. I looked down at him. "Manager Jin, did you not wish to compete with me in cooking?" "Excellent. The northern garrison needs someone to prepare pig feed. Go compete with Dio Chenkai and see which of you becomes more popular with the pigs." The crowd burst into laughter. After Jin Beisheng was dragged away, Wanjin dining house became completely packed. Xiao Yan sat behind the counter collecting payments. Half an hour later, I checked the account book and found 30 copper coins missing. "Where is the money?" His small face became stern. "Operational expenses of the Prince Regent's residence." I looked at the candied hawthorn skewer peeking from his sleeve. "What operational expenses?" "Compensation for the young heir's labor." I held back my laughter. "Who taught you that?" He pointed toward the door. Moju turned and ran. Xiao Jinhen came to the restaurant every evening. On the first day, he said he was inspecting security in the neighborhood. On the second day, he said he was checking whether the restaurant obstructed the street. On the third day, he sat in the same seat as before and asked me, "What are we eating today?" I placed a bowl of beef noodles before him. "Was Your Highness not occupied with official matters?" "I am not busy today." "What about yesterday?" "I was not busy yesterday either." "Then why did you say you might not have time?" He was silent for a moment. My judgment was incorrect. I sat opposite him and watched him lower his head to eat. After his first bite, his familiar thoughts sounded in my ears. "She smiled 3 times at the neighboring table today, and only once at me." I silently looked toward the neighboring table. An elderly couple, both over 70, sat there. Excellent. The Prince Regent was now jealous of old grandfathers. I deliberately asked, "How are the noodles today?" He replied calmly, "Acceptable." His thoughts immediately followed. "They are delicious. If she makes them every day, I can buy the entire street." I could not restrain my laughter. "Your Highness." "What is it?" "In the future, if you wish to eat, simply say so. There is no need to purchase the street first." Xiao Jinhen's chopsticks paused. He stared at me with a complicated expression. I suspected he was wondering how I had seen through him. I calmly returned his gaze. "Continue suffering in silence." That was the price of being stubborn. At that moment, a palace eunuch arrived with an imperial decree. 5 days later, the young emperor would hold a spring banquet. I was ordered to bring the cooks of Wanjin dining house into the palace and supervise the meal. After the eunuch left, Xiao Jinhan frowned slightly. There will be many people and hidden dangers at the palace banquet. You may refuse. I unfolded the decree. It carried the faint fragrance of dragon incense. Beneath it was an extremely light scent of datura powder. Someone had touched this decree after handling a sedative. I smiled and rolled it closed. Why would I refuse? The fish has already bitten the hook. If I do not attend, would I not disappoint whoever showed such enthusiasm in delivering themselves to me? On the day of the spring banquet, I entered the palace with 12 food chests. I personally inspected every one of them. I did not overlook even the dust inside the cracks between the boards. However, once we entered the imperial kitchen, I examined them again. One chest now had a hidden compartment beneath its base. I touched it. Words appeared before my eyes. Modified half an hour ago. Hidden inside, counterfeit private seal of the Prince Regent and a secret letter from Prince Qi. Handled by Liu Ruyan. I almost applauded her. The woman might lack intelligence, but her courage was impressive. Framing someone for treason was the sort of task that could lead to the execution of 9 generations. Yet she had personally carried it out. I did not remove the hidden objects. Instead, I carved a seal from a radish and placed it on the upper level of the compartment. Then I deliberately set the food chest in a conspicuous place. As expected, before the banquet began, Liu Ruyan entered the imperial kitchen with imperial guards. Someone has reported that the food chests brought into the palace by Princess Consort Shen contain evidence of treason. I sat beside the stove, eating an osmanthus cake. After hearing her accusation, I swallowed the final bite. Miss Liu arrived quickly, almost as though you already knew exactly where the evidence was hidden. She sneered. Elder sister need not delay. Whether you are innocent will become clear once the chest is opened. I spread my hands. Please proceed. She strode directly toward the correct food chest. Without searching, she pressed the mechanism that opened the hidden compartment. The guards surrounding us immediately exchanged looks. There were 12 food chests. Yet she had known the precise location and mechanism at once. Liu Ruyan did not seem to notice. She reached inside, pulled out a red seal and raised it high. This is the private seal of the Prince Regent. I leaned closer. Miss Liu, are you certain? Of course. But this appears to be a radish. She froze. She lowered her eyes and examined it carefully. The so-called private seal was red, fresh and juicy. A strip of radish skin remained around the edge. I said sincerely, no matter how powerful the Prince Regent may be, I doubt he mobilizes armies with root vegetables. Someone nearby failed to restrain a snort of laughter. Liu Ruyan's face turned crimson. She hurriedly reached deeper into the compartment. This time, she pulled out the actual counterfeit seal and Prince Qi's secret letter. Joy had barely appeared on her face when I asked, "How strange." I did not know the compartment had a second layer. How did Miss Liu know? Her hand froze in midair. The entire imperial kitchen became silent. I slowly rose. Furthermore, the letter remained sealed. How did you know it accused the Prince Regent of treason rather than Prince Qi? Liu Ruyan's lips trembled. I merely guessed. Oh, is that so? I do not believe you. I clapped my hands. Mo Ju brought in a young palace eunuch from the imperial kitchen. The moment he knelt, he confessed. Miss Liu gave this servant 500 taels and ordered me to alter the food chest. She said that once the matter succeeded, Prince Qi would arrange for this servant to leave the palace. Liu Ruyan screamed, "You are lying." I looked at the letter in her hand. If he is lying, then open the letter before everyone. She did not move. I pulled the letter from her hand and unfolded it. It clearly recorded the time and location of Prince Qi's meetings with a deputy commander from the frontier army. It also described the plan to use the spring banquet to frame the Prince Regent's residence. Liu Ruyan turned deathly pale. She spun around and tried to flee. A tall figure in dark robes blocked the imperial kitchen doorway. Xiao Jinhen entered. "Where are you going?" Liu Ruyan's knees weakened. She collapsed to the floor. "Cousin, I was forced. Shen Wanjin framed me." I raised an eyebrow. Even now, she was still trying to place the blame on me. Her determination was remarkable. She was already at the bottom of a well, yet she still wanted to spit upward first. Xiao Jinhen did not even look at her. He walked directly to my side. "Were you injured?" I shook my head. "No." "Were you frightened?" "No." He nodded and turned to the imperial guards. "Take her away. Interrogate her thoroughly." Liu Ruyan cried, "Cousin, you cannot believe only her." Xiao Jinhen's voice was colder than ice. "If I do not believe her, should I believe you? Besides, she is right." I glanced at him. He had become increasingly skilled at using that phrase. Prince Qi did not appear at the banquet. Clearly, he had realized the plan had failed and escaped in advance. The arrested eunuch confessed that Prince Qi had prepared a second plan. If the attempt to frame the Prince Regent failed, his men would abduct Xiao Yan and force Xiao Jinhen to surrender military authority. When I returned to the residence, Xiao Yan was feeding geese in the courtyard. The moment he saw me, he ran over. Food Mother was the palace fun. I crouched and pinched his cheek. "No. So we will create our own entertainment." His eyes brightened. "Catch bad people." I nodded. "Someone wants to capture you." Xiao Yan did not look afraid. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves. "May I release the geese to bite them?" I looked at the dozen large, well-fed white geese in the courtyard. I suddenly felt that the child possessed excellent tactical instincts. "Yes. Remember to release the fiercest one first." Moju quietly asked, "Which one is the fiercest?" Xiao Yan and I both looked at him. The largest white goose stretched out its neck and looked at him as well. Moju took one step backward. "I understand. Whichever one chases me fastest is the fiercest." Prince Qi's men climbed over the walls of the Prince Regent's residence at midnight. They apparently believed the guards had already been drawn away by an insider. Their movements were extremely confident. What they did not know was that beginning at dusk, I had scattered flour, brushed honey onto several surfaces, and tied 12 white geese along the routes they would inevitably take. The first assassin landed in flour. 2 white footprints immediately appeared on his black clothing. The second pressed his palm into honey while climbing the wall. After landing, his sticky hand attached itself to his companion's waistband. The third was the most unfortunate. He had just drawn his sword when Xiao Yan shouted from the rooftop, "Release the geese." The courtyard gate opened. 12 enormous white geese surged out like a snowy flood, wings spread wide. The assassins were clearly well trained. They might not have feared swords. They might not have feared death. But when faced with a flock of wild-eyed geese that possessed neither honor nor restraint and specialized in biting people on the backside, all training became meaningless. Screams immediately filled the courtyard. "What are these creatures? Get it away from me. It bit me." I stood beneath the eaves with a bowl of sunflower seeds in my hand. If one lived long enough, one truly could witness anything. Prince Qi's feared death warriors were being chased around the courtyard, like villagers rushing through a New Year market. Moju led the guards out. However, after taking only 2 steps, the largest goose turned and began chasing him. Moju ran while shouting, "Princess consort, why does it only chase this subordinate?" I cracked open a seed. "Perhaps it believes you present a greater challenge. This subordinate cannot outrun it." Then it was mistaken. Xiao Yan crouched on the roof, laughing so hard that he nearly fell backward. Uncle Moju is not the greatest fighter in the residence. The assassins were quickly subdued. One attempted to bite through the poison capsule hidden in his tooth. I blocked his mouth with a peanut before he could succeed. His eyes widened. I patted his shoulder. Do not rush to die. The King of Hell is on leave today. No one will be there to receive you. The interrogation went smoothly. I placed a steaming bowl of red braised pork before each assassin. Only those willing to confess were allowed to eat. The first man continued resisting. The second had already revealed half a list of names. The third smelled the meat and confessed that Prince Chi had once stolen a neighbor's chicken as a child. I could not help reflecting that torture might force open a mouth. Red braised pork, however, could open the soul. After the final assassin ate the meal I prepared, his thoughts entered my ears. Prince Chi will launch a palace coup during the Imperial Longevity Banquet in 3 days. The commander of the Southern Gate has already been bribed. I immediately told Xiao Jinhen. He ordered Moju to take the prisoners away. Soon, only the two of us remained in the courtyard. Moonlight fell across his shoulders and softened the severe lines of his face. If you had not discovered the plan in advance today, Yenner might have. He did not finish. I could see that he was truly afraid. I patted his arm. Do not worry. Your son is now the junior manager of Wanjin Dining House. Anyone who tries to take him is stealing my worker. Xiao Jinhen looked at me. Only a worker. What else? He secretly eats 3 candied hawthorn skewers every day and cannot balance a ledger. At best, he is child labor. A voice suddenly called from the rooftop. I heard that. I looked up. Children who remain awake at this hour lose tomorrow's pastries. The roof immediately went silent. The corner of Xiao Jinhen's mouth lifted slightly. I stared at him. Your Highness, did you just smile? His face returned to its usual blank expression. No. I saw it. You were mistaken. Oh. Is that so? I do not believe you. He was silent for a moment. Then he stepped forward. The distance between us vanished. I could smell the faint fragrance of dark wood on his clothes. Shen Wanjin. Yes. I am not skilled at pleasing people. I answered honestly. I noticed. He appeared momentarily choked. But I can learn. Learn what? Peeling shrimp. Tending the fire. Washing pots. He listed each task with absolute seriousness. If you are willing to stay, I can wash your pots for the rest of my life. My heart gave a violent beat. Other men confessed their love with flowers and promises of the moon. He offered to wash pots. Yet for some reason, I found the promise deeply moving. Flowers withered. The moon could not be reached. But pots truly needed washing every day. I crossed my arms. Only wash pots. He added, the residence treasury, the military authority, and the farmland will all be entrusted to you. I nodded. That is better. He watched me. Then you agree. I deliberately said, that will depend on your performance. His thoughts immediately entered my ears. She did not refuse. She is willing to stay. The joy hidden in that thought was so deep that I could not help smiling. Xiao Jinhen raised a hand, as though he wished to touch my face. Then he stopped halfway. I simply grabbed his collar and pulled him lower. Your Highness. Yes. Stop hesitating. I kissed him. His entire body froze. A roof tile suddenly cracked above us. I looked up. Xiao Yan and Moju withdrew their heads at the same time. Wonderful. The roof of the Prince Regent's residence did not merely leak wind. It grew people. I released Xiao Jinhen. The tips of his ears were red, though he still struggled to maintain a calm expression. Just now, I interrupted him. There will be a coup in 3 days. We should handle official matters first. He nodded. Very well. He took 2 steps, then turned back. After the rebellion is suppressed, may I be kissed again. I nearly collapsed laughing. The mighty Prince Regent discussed romance, as though scheduling a military grain delivery. That depends on how many rebels you arrest. He answered seriously, I will attempt to arrest as many as possible. On the day of the Imperial Longevity Banquet, 300 tables were arranged inside the palace. Prince Chi intended to drug every official through the imperial meal. Then the southern gate guards would lead soldiers into the palace and force the young emperor to abdicate. His plan was thorough. Without me, it would have had at least a 70% chance of success. Unfortunately for him, he had encountered a woman more sensitive to ingredients than to men. Of the 20 sacks of flour delivered to the imperial kitchen, 2 contained a large quantity of sedative powder. I replaced the drugged flour with ordinary flour. Then I used the daily vegetable delivery carts of Wanjin Dining House to send the information to the military camp outside the city. Meanwhile, Xiao Jinhen secretly replaced the southern gate guards and trapped Prince Chi's men outside the palace. Once the banquet began, Prince Chi entered the great hall wearing a prince's python-patterned robe. His face was full of confidence. Liu Ruyan had also been rescued from confinement. She wore the clothing of a palace maid and hid behind him. When I saw her, I was nearly moved. The woman's dedication was extraordinary. The swelling on one side of her face had not yet faded, but she was already eager to offer me the other. After 3 rounds of wine, Prince Chi raised his cup. Today is Imperial Brother's birthday. This prince has ordered the preparation of 100 blessings cakes. I invite every honored official to enjoy them. The cakes, supposedly containing sedatives, were served before the officials. They had all been informed in advance. Each cooperatively ate one. A moment later, Prince Chi put down his cup. The hall became quiet. He waited. No one collapsed. His brows drew together. He signaled to Liu Ruyan. She hurriedly coughed. Only then did several officials in the front rows remember their assigned roles. One after another, they dropped across their tables. One elderly minister became so committed to his performance that the instant his head touched the table, he truly fell asleep. His snores shook the hall. Prince Chi's face twitched. Nevertheless, he drew his sword. Xiao Jinhen has seized the young emperor and controlled the imperial court. Today, this prince will eliminate the traitor beside the throne. I sat among the guests and asked curiously, Your Highness, Prince Chi, whom exactly are you eliminating? The Prince Regent, naturally. But he is not standing beside you. Prince Chi froze. I pointed toward the imperial dais. You are shouting so passionately at empty air. I thought perhaps you intended to eliminate dust. Several officials, pretending to be unconscious, began shaking with suppressed laughter. Prince Chi roared, Shen Wanjin, you stand at death's door and still dare argue. He took a pill from his sleeve and swallowed it. This prince has already taken the antidote. Everyone who ate the 100 blessings cakes will be unable to move for 1 hour. I looked at the remaining pills in his hand. Are you certain you took an antidote? Prince Chi's expression changed. I kindly explained. Those are hawthorn pills I prepared for the dowager consort. They aid digestion. He did not believe me. He lifted one foot and attempted to walk toward the imperial dais. His shoe landed on flour that had spilled earlier. His foot slipped. He fell flat on the floor with a loud crash. His posture was remarkably proper. His forehead landed directly against the lowest step of the imperial platform. It looked as though he had prepared an elaborate prostration before the emperor. I could not resist applauding. Your Highness, Prince Chi need not be so courteous. His Majesty is still young. He cannot accept such a grand bow from you." The officials, pretending to be unconscious, could no longer restrain themselves. They raised their heads and burst into laughter. Prince Chi finally realized something was wrong. "You were not poisoned." The elderly minister was pushed awake by his colleague. He raised his head in confusion. "Has the banquet begun?" The hall shook with even louder laughter. The clash of weapons sounded beyond the palace gates. Not long afterward, Xiao Jinhen entered with troops. Armored guards forced the southern gate rebels and Prince Chi's followers to kneel outside the hall. Xiao Jinhen walked to my side and looked me over from head to toe. "Were you injured?" I shook my head. "No." "Were you frightened?" "Only hungry." He immediately ordered someone to bring my favorite osmanthus duck. Prince Chi remained on the floor and roared, "Xiao Jinhen, you knew this prince's plan from the beginning." Xiao Jinhen placed a piece of duck in my bowl. "The princess consort said you would rebel." I believed her. Prince Chi turned on Liu Ruyan through gritted teeth. "This is your fault. Did you not say Shen Wanjin only knew how to cook?" Liu Ruyan became frantic as well. "Your Highness clearly said that as long as I brought the food chest into the palace, you would make me empress." Prince Chi's face changed violently. She had not yet realized her mistake. She continued shouting, "You personally gave me the list of Southern Gate guards and the 20,000 private soldiers outside the city." Prince Chi kicked her to the ground. "Silence." I gazed at her in admiration. This was what one might call a self-destructing carriage. She had not only crashed herself into a wall, she had flattened her master on the way. The evidence was conclusive. Prince Chi was arrested on the spot. Even while being dragged away, Liu Ruyan continued screaming that she was the future empress. I watched her disappear and sincerely wished her well. A person should always have dreams. Perhaps she would fall asleep during exile and experience one. After the coup was suppressed, the young emperor publicly rewarded the Prince Regent's residence. "Imperial aunt has rendered great service in protecting the throne. What reward do you desire?" I considered the question. "This subject wishes for 30 mu of land west of the capital." The officials froze. The young emperor was also surprised. "What will Imperial aunt do with the land?" "Build a farm, grow vegetables, raise chickens, and establish a culinary academy." The young emperor agreed immediately. After the banquet, Xiao Jinhen and I walked side by side through the palace gates. "Only 30 mu." I glanced at him. "What else should I ask for?" "You could request more." "What does your Highness intend to give me?" He stopped walking. "A new wedding." I froze. When the original Shen Wanjin had entered the Prince Regent's residence, she had been carried through a side gate in a small sedan chair. There had been no formal ceremony. No guests. Xiao Jinhen had not even appeared. He looked at me with complete seriousness. "The first time you entered this residence, marrying you was not my decision. This time, I wish to personally welcome you through the main gate." Warmth rose inside my chest. Yet I still asked, "What about the betrothal gifts?" He did not hesitate. "All the assets of the Prince Regent's residence." "What else?" "Command authority over 300,000 soldiers in the Northern Territory." "Think further." He was silent for a moment. "Myself." I nodded in satisfaction. The final item does not appear especially valuable, but at least it can wash pots. To my surprise, he nodded. "It can." I took his hand. "Then let us hold the wedding." His fingers closed around mine. The corner of his mouth slowly rose. This time, I saw it clearly. He truly smiled. 3 months after the rebellion was suppressed, the Prince Regent's residence held a grand wedding. Xiao Jinhen apparently believed he owed me for the first ceremony. This time, He seemed determined to cover the entire capital in red silk. The procession of betrothal gifts stretched from the residence to the city gate. It took 2 full hours to pass. The citizens, lining the streets, attempted to count the chests. After 300, they collectively surrendered. Mo Jiu rode at the head of the procession, with a red flower larger than his face tied across his chest. Through a gap in the sedan curtain, I caught sight of him. For a moment, I thought the Prince Regent's residence was marrying an enchanted peony. When the bridal sedan arrived at the residence gates, it suddenly stopped. Xiao Yan's childish voice sounded outside. Wait. I must ask clearly first. Is Food Mother marrying Father today, or is she marrying the residence kitchen? The guests along the street burst into laughter. I answered from inside the sedan. Whichever one gives the larger betrothal gift. The outside became silent for a moment. Xiao Jinhen immediately said, Mo Jiu, bring every key to the residence treasury. Mo Jiu was stunned. Your Highness, all of them. All of them. Xiao Yan became anxious. I also have money. He took out his small pouch. I have 3 taels of silver, 4 pieces of candy, and 1 chicken leg I hid yesterday. I lifted the sedan curtain. The chicken leg has been sitting overnight. Is it still edible? Xiao Yan immediately hid both hands behind his back. I only brought it out to demonstrate sincerity. I was not truly giving it away. Excellent. The child possessed a profound understanding of affection. The sentiment could be offered. The chicken leg could not. In the end, I held Xiao Jinhen's hand with one of mine and Xiao Yan's with the other. Together, we entered the main gates of the Prince Regent's residence. During the wedding rites, the dowager consort sat at the head of the hall, smiling so broadly that she could hardly close her mouth. The young emperor personally attended as witness. When it was time for husband and wife to bow to each other, Xiao Jinhen bent too quickly. His forehead struck my phoenix crown with a dull thud. The hall went silent. Mo Jiu failed to restrain himself. He snorted. Xiao Jinhen looked at him. Mo Jiu dropped to his knees immediately. This subordinate wishes your highness, and the princess consort, an early birth of a noble child. Xiao Yan objected at once. They cannot have one. Everyone froze. He wrapped himself around my leg and said gravely, if Food Mother has another child, she will give that child the chicken leg first. Xiao Jinhen replied calmly, you are already 5. You should take your own chicken legs. Xiao Yan stared at him in horror. Father, you truly intend to drive me away. Father and son began arguing in the wedding hall. I steadied my phoenix crown and achieved perfect inner peace. Before marriage, I believed I would gain 1 husband and 1 son. After marriage, I discovered I was raising 2 people. One was 4.5. The other was 28.5. During the wedding feast, I heard news about the remaining villains. Dio Chenkai had been sent to raise pigs at the northern garrison. According to rumor, the first time he attempted to steal pig feed, more than a dozen pigs surrounded him in a corner. From that day onward, he never dared approach the feeding trough again. Jin Beisheng had been assigned to the same pig enclosure. The 2 men competed every day for the right to prepare pig feed. Unexpectedly, they raised the garrison pigs until they were exceptionally fat and healthy. By accident, they had managed to contribute to the imperial court. Lady Qin was convicted of forging the promissory note and seizing a deceased woman's dowry. She lost her honorary title, and most of her family property was confiscated. Shen Mingzhu followed her to a ruined courtyard outside the city. Her sweet fish of the underworld became famous throughout the capital. Whenever a restaurant served a terrible dish, customers would console one another. At least it is not as sweet as Miss Shen's fish. Liu Ruyan was sentenced to exile 3,000 li away. At relay stations, she cooked porridge in exchange for dry rations. Because she poured half a jar of salt into every pot, Passing travelers nicknamed her Salt Ruin. Someone later composed a children's rhyme. The Liu girl drifts like smoke. 3 bowls of salty porridge. And every traveler flees. As for Prince Qi, the evidence of treason was undeniable. He was confined at the imperial mausoleum. For the rest of his life, he could only reflect before the memorial tablets of his ancestors. I was deeply satisfied. Life should be fair. Some people lived in princely residences. Others lived at imperial tombs. Everyone received housing. On our wedding night, I sat beside the bed and removed the heavy phoenix crown. Xiao Jinhen entered carrying a bowl of longevity noodles. You made these. I was suspicious. The noodles varied wildly in thickness. The edge of the egg was slightly burned. 1 leaf of green vegetable hung over the side of the bowl. He nodded. I studied for 3 days. I took a bite. The flavor was not astonishing, but it was not bad. More importantly, he had truly learned. He sat beside me. How is it? Acceptable. I deliberately imitated his usual tone. His thoughts entered my ears. She ate it. She did not dislike it. I could not help smiling. Your Highness. Yes. You no longer need to pretend. Pretend what? The things you say inside your heart are much more adorable than the things you say aloud. His gaze sharpened. You can hear them. I bit through a noodle and answered slowly. Sometimes. He remained silent for a long time. I suddenly remembered the countless jealous, delighted, and stubborn thoughts I had heard from him. The Prince Regent's dignity was now thoroughly destroyed. I expected him to become embarrassed and angry. Instead, he simply reached out and embraced me. Then that is good. The things I cannot say, you will hear. I leaned against his chest. I cannot hear them every time. He lowered his eyes to me. Then I will say them more often. Say what? He answered seriously. I like you. I blinked. Say it again. I like you. I did not hear clearly. Shen Wanjin, I like you. A shout suddenly came from outside the door. Father, you cannot close the door and secretly eat noodles. I collapsed against Xiao Jinhen, laughing. He closed his eyes. A vein throbbed at his temple. Moju. Moju's voice immediately came from outside, filled with a desperate desire to survive. Your Highness, this subordinate could not stop the young heir. Xiao Yan pounded harder on the door. Food mother, I can smell the egg. I wiped away tears of laughter and pushed Xiao Jinhen lightly. Go open the door. He did not move. Tonight is our wedding night. Your son is hungry. He ate 3 bowls of rice half an hour ago. He is growing. Xiao Jinhen stared at the door for a moment. Then he suddenly bent and lifted me into his arms. Moju, take the young heir to the kitchen. No one is permitted near the main courtyard tonight. The outside became silent. Then Xiao Yan shouted, Father truly intends to keep food mother all to himself. I wrapped my arms around Xiao Jinhen's neck and laughed uncontrollably. Moonlight filled the window. In the courtyard, someone was chasing. Someone else was running. For reasons no one could explain, several large white geese joined the battle. In later years, branches of Wanjin Dining House opened across Great Sheng. The Culinary Academy I founded accepted countless impoverished women and injured retired soldiers. There, they learned a skill that allowed them to support themselves with dignity. When Xiao Yan was 8, he wrote a book titled A Study of How My Shameless Father Married My Mother Consort. Copies became almost impossible to obtain in the capital. Xiao Jinhen sent men to confiscate them. I immediately ordered 3,000 additional copies printed. He asked helplessly, Whose side are you on? I leaned against his shoulder and answered with perfect seriousness. I stand on the side of sales. In the end, he still personally checked the accounts for me. After all, the Prince Regent's residence had developed an unwritten rule. Whatever I said was correct. Whatever I did received full support. If anyone dared make me unhappy, Xiao Jinhan arrested them. Xiao Yan applauded. And I considered whether dinner should be red braised or steamed. What did the citizens of the capital say about me? Some claimed I was the extraordinary woman who conquered the young heir with one bowl of rice. Some said I was the princess consort who suppressed a rebellion with an iron wok. Others said I was the most dangerous woman in all of Great Shang. Whenever I heard such rumors, I waved modestly. They were far too exaggerated. How could I possibly be so frightening? My cooking was merely a little better. My mind was merely a little faster. My husband merely controlled a few more soldiers. My son merely held grudges a little longer. And I simply refused to let my enemies live comfortably. After all, forgiving them was the king of hell's responsibility. My responsibility had always been much simpler. I only delivered them to his door. The end.